You ever wonder why everyone is scared in Hollywood of Christopher Walken? Today we're going to be diving into exactly why. As we discuss, I'm drinking my morning coffee. Let me know what you guys are drinking. Thank you for subscribing. Now let's dive in.
Christopher Walken is a kind of enigma. He's never owned a phone, sent an email, or had a watch. But at 16, he tamed circus lions. He spent several years as a moon worshipper, and by now, the Christopher Walken story has become its own genre of lore.
Is it true that in your new movie, Christopher Walken filed his teeth? Oh my God, he is a scary, scary guy.
In '81, Walken's presence during the suspicious death of Natalie Wood raised questions.
Nobody will ever know. There is no real story.
He attended the trial of killer Jack Henry Abbott because I wanted to take a look at the guy, and in Hollywood,
he goes, the great thing in this town is they got young girls and you can hurt them.
Many actors have stories of their own.
He goes, you know what fame is? Fame is knowing you could walk into a room, f anyone in the ass.
Oh, wow.
That's fame.
And tonight, I'm gonna f Susie Kurtz in her ass.
And he walked away. And they're like, what? What happened?
Crazy.
And that's why he scares me. The way he stares at you when he talks.
Yeah, look. Is he the hunted or the hunter?
But the strange story of Christopher Walken
Are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin.
starts on a night with Mel Gibson.
I have to say, I do enjoy some of the movies that he's been in. He's definitely a creepy character, but I want to see what kind of dirt is behind those creepy eyes. Speaking of creepy eyes, I have them as well. I know.
Came to see me on a rooftop. He floated in, sideways, through a crowd of people. He was wearing black, and it was like one of those old vampire movies where they don't walk, but they glide. He just sat down in a chair next to me, and it kind of frightened me. And he's a very smart guy. And we started talking. I just started talking about the Middle Ages, and he began to talk tortures. And we swapped tortures, because I'd read this book on torture. And I tried to recall some of the most heinous things I'd ever read in this book. And he was like, oh, and he'd try and top it. And my assistant was there, and he left because he couldn't stand it anymore. The air had turned cold. And I wanted to leave because I knew that I didn't want to work with him. And
Mel Gibson always exposing something, always exposing someone.
he was getting scary. And then I turned around, and it was on top of the Peninsula Hotel. I turned around to avoid his steady gaze at one point, and I was looking at a building with the top of the sixes on it. There was a huge illuminated 666 in red. And I went from that to that to that, and he started smiling. And I thought, oh no, Chris Walken is the Antichrist.
Who are you? The Antichrist. You got me in a vendetta kind of mood.
In that interview, Mel Gibson is talking to director Mike Figgis, who also has his own story about auditioning Walken.
I said, have you had a chance to read the script? And he looked at me and he said, do you like my face? And I went, yes. And he said, well, that's fucking great, because if you don't, get De Niro. Fuck you, I'm out of here. And stood up and walked out.
In the stories to come, Walken confronts other actors in a similar way. But his communication style isn't surprising when you consider his background.
The man I called my grandfather was a charming guy, full of tattoos, but he wasn't really my grandfather.
Walken's real grandfather, Joseph Egan, was a career criminal. After being arrested in 1883, he served a 5-year sentence at Pentonville, a North London prison which aimed to reform inmates through a set of policies we now call solitary confinement. After 9 months in an 8 by 12-foot cell, and the rest of his sentence spent doing manual labor, Egan was released. He fathered a daughter, Rosalie Russell, who left the UK for New York, and there she had a son.
I remember when I was in school, when I was told that period is here and the comma is here, and that's a question mark. I always thought, well, don't tell me what to do.
Ronald Walken grows up listening to people speaking broken English, and as a result says, I probably speak English almost as a second language. But this doesn't stop him being put to work.
I've been in show business since I was about 5 years old.
My mother was smitten with show business. Television got started, and it all came from New York. There were 90 live shows from New York every week. And they used a lot of kids. They just bring kids in and stick them around like, you know, plants.
We were used as furniture, which you can kind of see in this clip. When at 10, Walken does this theme park bit with Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis.
Hey, come here. Come on, I'll give you a free ride. You do it again. Show this boy. Go ahead.
No, kid. That's terrific. That's terrific.
When he becomes a teenager, Walken is inspired by one star more than others.
There was this girl, and I was crazy about her. And one day I said, "You want to go to the dance?" And she said, "Well, I would, but I have this boyfriend. And he's an older fellow." And she took out this wallet, and she had like 12 pictures, and she showed me this picture of this guy. He was so handsome, almost blondish hair. And she said, "Well, that's my boyfriend." And I said to her, "That's not a photograph. That's cut out of a magazine." And she says, "Yes." And it's Elvis. And I think that Elvis, after that, had a huge impression.
Thank you very much.
Walken restyles his hair to look more like Elvis. And while it changes over time, maybe it's a little shorter or a little longer, the suggestion of Elvis is always there.
Honestly, that's kind of smart, right? If he's an aspiring actor, why not go with the trends and try and be, you know, with one of the most popular at the time. I actually didn't realize that he's been around for so long. That movie that he was working on was back in the 70s.
Looks like you were almost killed in an elevator accident.
At 16, Walken gets a summer job in a circus show. The lion tamer, who owned the small circus, would do this big act with a dozen big cats. And then he would send them all out at the end, and just leave this one old girl. And I would come in with my whip, and I'd go like that, and she'd sit up. But she was really more like a dog. She was very sweet. Around this time, Walken's primary talent is dancing, which he learns under the stripper and burlesque star Gypsy Rose Lee. Walken dances with a 16-year-old Liza Minnelli, and after graduating from New York's professional children's school, makes his living dancing in nightclubs and shows. This clip is from slightly later in his career, but you get a sense of just how good he is.
Dancers are really interesting. There's something pre-dawn of history about them. I mean, they communicate very fast and without necessarily words. Singers always took tremendously good care of themselves. And the dancers were the ones that never went to bed. They drank, they smoked cigarettes. I had a lot of fun.
In the clubs, vodka becomes the drug of choice of Walken's youth. And it's also in the clubs where he makes his name.
I worked with Monique Van Voren. I was in her nightclub act, and at the end she used to introduce us. And one night she said, "I'm going to call you Christopher." And I said, "You know, fine. Don't call me late to lunch."
And so it stuck.
But
so far, he seems like a normal, nice guy, maybe a little bit arrogant, confident in himself as he gets to the later stages of his career, but nothing seems strange about him besides maybe his dark gaze.
Walken is successful as a dancer. As an actor, for now, he isn't.
I played Hamlet 3 times, and I never was much good. Romeo twice, not really much good. Richard II, that was really awful.
I used to get criticized because I always turned to the audience and talked to them.
To support himself, Walken also works as a janitor at New York's Actors Studio, where he takes acting classes, and where, finally, he has a breakthrough under teacher Lee Strasberg. When someone off stage dropped a large box of dishes, Walken went right on playing the scene. "Everyone jumped except you," Strasberg said. "You didn't even react." "Yes," Walken replied, "I was concentrating." "That's not concentrating," Strasberg countered. "That's bad acting."
I thought concentration was zeroing in. But concentration really has to do with noticing everything.
Having 360-degree vision, not missing a thing, both on and off camera. While filming his first feature, Me and My Brother, Walken is warned about the industry he's getting into.
69 is when he got things started. Wow.
He is, quote, a young actor talking to an older actor. I'm not going to tell you who. As I was leaving the room, he said, "Chris, be careful." I walked out the door and don't think a day has gone by that I don't think about that. Be careful. Every day I think that, and I don't know what he meant. Given Hollywood's reputation, this warning isn't surprising. But in any case, Walken, like many other creatives, spends much of the 70s experimenting. For one, Walken spends a period of time as a sort of religious fanatic, a moon worshipper. Spent several years with that, and then it passed. After which, he remained very close to the moon, but I don't make myself miserable about her anymore. Later, while filming The Deer Hunter in Thailand...
It's hot, humid, and the bugs and everything, and the monkeys screaming. And
Walken tries Chinese opium. I didn't know what to do with it, so I ate it. And this makes him sick because, according to his doctor, the midnight oil had been cut with water buffalo dung, hence the intestinal bug, which lasted a long time. For the final film, Walken wins an Oscar.
Christopher Walken in The Bear Hunter.
But after the opium experience, he's put off God's medicine for good. He still experiments with other drugs like LSD until the mid to late 80s, but at that point he stops.
You have to wonder how much creativity comes from these actors, actresses, musicians that do experiment with these types of drugs. Does it enhance their creativity, or is it just something that they're doing for fun?
Reflecting, I don't do it anymore and wouldn't even be inclined or tempted. When it stopped being interesting, I stopped being interested in it. Kind of like the moon, it was a relationship. We gave up on each other. Walken ends his experimental years for the better, but it's also during this time that he's involved in a harrowing case. On November 28, 1981, Walken joins actor Robert Wagner and his wife, actress Natalie Wood, aboard their yacht, the Splendor. For context, Robert is known for TV shows like It Takes a Thief and Heart to Heart, in which he plays a wealthy amateur detective, Jonathan Hart. Natalie, who arguably had a higher profile at the peak of her career, is known for West Side Story and Rebel Without a Cause with James Dean. Most recently, however, she co-starred with Walken in Brainstorm, playing the wife of his character.
But you have to promise me that you'll never leave me again.
Aside from Walken, Wood, and Wagner, the only other person aboard the boat is Dennis DeVerne, the yacht's captain, whose testimony will later be revealing. On the evening of the 28th, the group docks at Catalina Island.
All right, so this is where things are about to get dark and a little bit maybe conspiracy connected.
At 7 p.m, they dine and drink here, in this booth at the Harbour Reef restaurant. When at 10 p.m, the party leaves to return to the yacht, they appear intoxicated, so the restaurant owner called the Harbour Patrol to assure the group reach the Splendor safely. Once they do, on the boat there's more drinking, and according to later testimony from DeVerne, the tension on the boat was unbearable.
The tension was building throughout the whole weekend of Robert Wagner being jealous of Christopher Walken. He was just getting to a boiling point.
According to Natalie Wood's sister Lana, Natalie was infatuated with Walken.
And we all went inside the boat and opened a bottle of wine, and the jealousy was just getting so tense that Robert Wagner had picked up the bottle of wine and smashed it right in front of Natalie and Christopher on the coffee table.
Reportedly, while arguing over the direction of Wood's career, Walken defended her independence, which led to Wagner smashing the bottle and yelling, "Jesus Christ, what are you trying to do? My wife." In this documentary, Wagner admits to smashing the bottle. He also maintains that after the argument, Wood went to her room and he and Walken cooled off on the deck. The captain's story, however, is different.
Natalie was devastated, and she went into her stateroom, and Robert Wagner had followed, and they were arguing in the stateroom. Then the arguing went on to the aft deck, and moments later, everything became silent. So I thought that maybe they were making up and going to go to bed, and that was going to be the end of it. So I waited for a little while, and I decided I'm going to go down below. I'm going to go to the aft deck and just see if everything's okay. Robert Wagner was standing there, leaning his back against the back of the boat, facing the boat, and he said that Natalie was missing and would I go search the boat. So I immediately went to my stateroom, thinking that maybe she went to my stateroom because she felt maybe that she was safe there. I came back and I told Robert Wagner that Natalie was nowhere on the boat. So Robert Wagner, he said to me that the dinghy is gone too.
This does not sound like Walken did anything. This sounds like the husband had a jealous rage and threw his wife over the boat.
Well, I just knew that Natalie was so deathly afraid of the water and not really capable of taking that boat by herself. But he said the boat was gone and she was gone.
Later, at 1:30 a.m, an alert is sent from the Splendor back to the restaurant. A search begins, and 6 hours later, Wood's body is found a mile from the yacht, near Blue Cabin Point on Catalina. Wood is face down in the ocean, wearing a plaid flannel nightgown and argyle socks, and she is pronounced on 0744 hours. When Wood's autopsy report is released, it presents some obvious causes for concern, namely the prevalence of bruising. The right forearm showed a 4-inch by 1-inch diffuse bruising on the lateral aspect, and few bruises on back of hand. The left wrist showed a slight deformity, and there was also a superficial fresh bruise in this area 1/2 inch in diameter. There were multiple small 1/2 inch to 1-inch fresh bruises in the left anterior lateral thigh, a 2-inch recent bruise to the left knee, recent bruises to the right upper leg and right ankle. There was also superficial abrasion in left forehead, left brow, and the left upper cheek area with an upward direction. There were recent bruises to the back of the left thigh and fresh bruises and scratches to the right posterior leg. As you can imagine, after this report came out, rumors began to circulate that Walken or Wagner, or perhaps both, might have had something to do with Wood's death. Walken, however, tells police he was asleep when Wood disappeared, and after 12 days, on December 11, the investigation is closed, with Wood's death ruled an accidental drowning.
An accidental drowning. Now, do you remember Walken was warned about Hollywood? He was in that theater and someone said, be careful, and he didn't know what it meant. Are we talking about some real strong Hollywood presence right now? Because all of that bruising, unless if it was done while in the water, maybe she was smashing against the rocks or something, I'm not sure. That's not something that is normal for especially a woman to have. I'm wondering if they ever went to the restaurant where they were prior to this accident and asked what they witnessed. What did she look like? Did she have bruising? Because that would give a lot of information whether the bruising happened on the boat after the restaurant or if it happened while after she had fallen overboard.
2 years later, in an interview with Entertainment Tonight, Walken gives this response.
Do you think that the real story of Natalie Wood's death has actually come out?
The real story of her death is that she drowned. And nobody knows how she drowned or what happened except her. That's what it is. There is no real story. Nobody will ever know.
And to a lot of people, this response feels off. Of all the roles Christopher Walken has played, this interview is the performance that chilled me to the bone. The only word of truth that came out of CW's mouth is when he says nobody'll ever know. Stooping Delight Smirk tells me he knows something. In 2011, however, Captain DeVerne reveals that he had originally lied to police, and that after Wood's disappearance, Wagner told him not to turn on the floodlights to search the water. We didn't take any steps to see if we could locate her. It was a matter of don't look too hard, don't turn on the searchlight, don't call anyone.
I thought, well, let's turn on the searchlight and let's just see if we can see her. So after that, he said no.
Because of the new testimony, the case is reopened. In Chief Medical Examiner Lakshmanan Satyavagiswaran's addendum to the autopsy report, he states the fact that her stomach contained 500 cc of partially digested food materials supports the opinion of the time of death being around midnight. This means it took a whole 90 minutes for the Splendor to send its alert at 1:30 a.m., which is consistent with the captain's story.
And I said, let's turn on the searchlight to see if we could see her. And he says, we're not going to do that. He said, no. And I said, well, let's call the restaurant. He said, we're not going to do that either. So we stood there and I was just devastated. I think I was actually in shock. And after a couple hours, I said, we have to call the restaurant. So we called the restaurant.
The new examiner also concludes that the location of the bruises, the multiplicity of the bruises, support bruising having occurred prior to entry in the water.
That answers my question right there. I'm no doctor. I don't know if the bruising can happen after death or whatnot, but it seems that it happened before. This is very clear that this stuff happened on the boat. The captain of the boat said that Walken was in his room. So, I mean, it's pretty clear what happened here, no? How was this just looked at and dismissed?
A non-accidental mechanism for certain bruises.
I think she was dead when she hit the water, unconscious. And when she hits the water, I mean, they said there wasn't any water in her lungs.
The cause of death is then changed to drowning and other undetermined factors. To this day, employees of the Harbour Reef restaurant, such as one who spoke to journalist Andrew Chamings, have reportedly been told not to talk to anyone about that case. Management told me, if you answer the phone and they ask about Natalie Wood, you have no comment. Presently, no criminal case has been launched, but the captain stands by his conviction.
I think the argument got out of control, and she was knocked unconscious by a physical fight from Robert Wagner and put in the water.
You believe when you were standing on the back of that...
Oh my God, it's Dr. Phil. We just talked about Dr. Phil, how this guy's a complete sham. At least we're getting the story here, but I would never believe anything that this guy has to say. By the way, if you missed our video on Dr. Phil, it went out about 2 weeks ago. It's definitely worth taking a peek at.
Boat, and he said, don't turn on that searchlight. You were talking to a murderer.
Wagner and put in the water.
You believe when you were standing on the back of that boat and he said, don't turn on that searchlight, you were talking to a murderer.
Exactly.
You believe Robert Wagner murdered Natalie Wood.
I really do.
Said right there.
Following Wood's death, Walken has mostly been quiet on the subject, with his ET interview being one of his most vocal ones.
Did that make that entire experience painful for you?
I mean, it was, you know, in so many ways, it was a terrible thing. Well, I suppose, you know, confrontation with the sudden absence of somebody you're working with and for anybody, you know, it's bound to make a difference in your life, yeah.
You have to wonder, what's keeping Walken silent? Does he truly not know? Or is he scared to actually say?
2 months after the incident in January 1982, Walken becomes interested in the trial of a man named Jack Henry Abbott. Abbott is being tried for the stabbing of a waiter, Richard Aden, which occurred after Richard told Abbott there were no customer restrooms at his restaurant. At the time of the trial, Walken is also being considered for the role of Abbott in an adaptation of the killer's recent memoir, In the Belly of the Beast. The memoir, which critiques the prison system, will generate $7.5 million in royalties over the next 8 years. And even now, it gives Abbott, despite his violent crimes, fans. Among them is Susan Sarandon, who will later name her own son, Jack Henry Robbins, after the killer, and who now attends the trial with Walken. According to Walken, he goes because I wanted to take a look at the guy. I often go to court to watch people's emotions. But after Abbott is sentenced to 15 years to life, the biopic doesn't get off the ground. And Walken, over the next 20 years, explores his darker interests through other roles. In Sleepy Hollow, he plays the Headless Horseman, a mob consigliere in True Romance, Archangel Gabriel in The Prophecy.
That's the movie, The Prophecy. That's the main movie that I saw him back when I was in high school. He was creepy, but he played the role well.
Kill firstborns while their mamas watch. The only thing you can count on in your existence is never understanding why.
And Walken also brings his intensity to comedy.
Wolfie knocks on the door. But it's a straw door, so how he knocks on it, I don't know. Who wrote this? But hey, knock, knock anyway, right? Who wants to argue?
Walken's roles are often funny and frightening at the same time, because to him,
there's an equation between what's funny and scary, a connection between laughing and smiling, something a little bit scary about things that are funny.
Which also reflects other actors' stories about him.
Matt Broderick has a great one from Biloxi Blues where he goes, you know, the great thing in this town is they got young girls and you can hurt them.
In another story, Jay Moore recalls...
First time I met Christopher Walken on the set of Suicide Kings, I go to say hi to him. As I'm walking up, the first thing he says to me is, you know, I can see you coming. And I just kind of freeze. I had my Rottweiler with me. He goes, I can see your dog, too. And he goes, I gotta know, what happened to your dog's tail? It's gone. Where did it go? It's okay, you can tell me.
I love how when people talk about him, about conversations, they kind of go with his accent and how he speaks. It's quite funny.
And I'm just standing there like in this driveway going, where the fuck is my dog's tail? And then he gets like real close to me and he goes, it would be great to have a tail. And he goes, if you had a tail, everyone would know. If you were angry or upset, they'd see you. They'd see you coming up the block. They'd say, get back. Look at his tail.
This is funny.
And I go, well, you probably mean happy, like people know if you're happy. If you have a tail, you'd wag it because you're happy. And he goes, maybe you and your tail.
Later in the production, in one of the scenes where Jay has Walken duct taped in a chair, Jay is supposed to cry, but when the take starts...
Okay, we're rolling. He goes, hey, Jay, what's the name of the woman who plays the nanny? I go, Fran Drescher? He goes, yeah, I would like to bang her. Action!
And this story is similar to one from Titus Welliver.
He says, I tell you, the great thing about fame, I could walk in that party, I could f any girl I want to, and tonight I'm gonna f Swoozie Kurtz in her ass.
A line he apparently uses quite a bit.
He goes, you guys, you know what fame is? Fame is knowing you could walk into a room, anyone in the ass. That's fame.
Jeez.
And he walked away. And they're like, what? What happened?
In 2003, Walken plays the villain in The Rundown. And from Sean William Scott's stories, you get the sense Walken just enjoys pranking people. He pretends to be gay.
He goes, do you know where I can get a nice steam? And I was like, Christopher Walken, there's a place called Burke Williams, and apparently they have a place where you can get a nice steam. And he goes, do you think there'd be a lot of pretty men there? And I'm like, sure. And he looked at me and he winked and he walked away.
And then...
a couple weeks later, he walked up to me and he goes, the Rolling Stones are playing this October. I'm like, holy shit. I go up to Dwayne. Dude, Christopher Walken wants to go to the Rolling Stones with us. They're playing this October. And Dwayne looks at me and goes, dude, it's November. And then he looked at me and he winked and he just walked away. That's what he would do all the time.
Maybe one reason Walken is so mysterious is because to him...
I have no idea about anybody's life experience except my own. No idea. People are completely mysterious. Even in my own family, I have no idea what anybody's thinking.
I still don't know exactly what to make of Christopher Walken, but maybe that's the point. He's funny, frightening, and strange all at once. And in his words, no matter what character I'm playing, it's me. If you enjoy...
I honestly think he's a great actor. He could take on multiple different roles. He's mysterious, and he's comfortable in that mystery. What does resonate with me is wondering why he's not speaking more about that evening on the boat. Why is he being so quiet? Does he really know nothing, or is he being silenced? This video originally came from the Ming channel, which I'll be linking in the description below. Thank you guys for watching. And if you want to dive deeper, let's say into how much of a crook Dr. Phil is, you could check out this video, and I'll see you over there.